Greetings historians, welcome to Lore of the Dragon. Villains are something that, in the case of Spyro, have either stood the test of time or have rather been forgotten, lost to the shadows of their more predominant counterparts. However, there is a villain that, while somewhat lost to time, has remained somewhat prevalent in the eyes of some fans, and in some regards reminds them of characters of more popular reception. Today, we're going to be talking about a dragon known as Red, his backstory, his downfall, and eventual redemption. At the end of this video, I'm going to theorize on how exactly he might be able to come back in a future Spyro game, or if he should at all. And if by the end of the video that you have a theory or idea, let me know what it is in the comments below. Keep in mind that Red and most of the things in this video come from after what is explored in the Spyro Reignited trilogy, so for now, their canon status should be taken carefully. Red, from what can be assumed, came from a place outside what we know as the Dragon Realms, but rather the greater Dragon Kingdom, and was a part of its governing body, the Council of Elders. While he was rather closed off, he had two friends on the council, dragons by the names of Titan and Thomas. Now for some of you, these names might be familiar, as they are ones belonging to dragons Spyro saved when his first adventure started. Despite this, these dragons don't seem to be the same ones, and might imply that these names are simply popular among those of the Dragon Kingdom. One day, Red disappeared, his whereabouts unknown to the rest of the council. He would, however, soon return, his personality seeming different than what it was when he disappeared. Aggressiveness, a desire for more power, an interest and later experiments in dark magic, all of it for an unknown reason and suddenly coming out of nowhere. Dragons started to propose that the Dragon Kingdom could benefit from the use of dark crystals. However, this would be challenged, especially by Red's friend, Thomas. But even without the blessing of the council, Red continued his experiments, trying to master the dark energy that he sought to bring to the realms. This would result in a short but devastating event, where he led a creature from an alternate dimension into the realms. At the time, he thought he could control it, and keep it contained, but he would soon be proven wrong. Whatever he pulled out of the other dimension started to crash its way through a place called the Dragonfly Dojo, and eventually making its way to Thomas's house, destroying it in the process. The council convened, and together with their magic, sent the creature back to where it had come from, but its damage had already been done. As the council finished raiding the kingdom of the creature, they looked to Red, and knew that it was he who brought the monster. Thomas, now filled with hatred for Red, banished him, exiling him from the realms for the rest of his days. Red would leave bitter, furious at the council, but as time passed, this seemed to be the end of his experiments. Years went by, and the Dragon Kingdom had been through its fair share of trouble, through those that either meant to take vengeance on the dragons, or long-forgotten enemies that meant to abuse the magic generated by their young. It was during this time of turmoil that a young dragon named Spyro and his faithful companion Sparx had risen to each challenge, and fought back the dragon's foes. These tales of his heroic actions would spread through the realms and beyond, to both those who stood by the kingdom and those who planned to usurp it. Unknown to the hero of the kingdom and realms, a darkness had started to spread across the land, caused by none other than Red, who now used dark gems to taint the land with dark energy. He wasn't alone though. With Red was Nasty Nork and his army who helped the fallen Elder Dragon in the assault on the Dragon Kingdom. Now for those who have played Spyro the Reignited trilogy, this might be slightly confusing, as Nasty seemed to have been defeated indefinitely. But this doesn't mean that it was never intended that he might strike back again. In fact, he was. A hidden meeting after Spyro and his friends had retaken the eggs occurred between both Nasty and Ripto, who seemed to survive being beaten by Spyro. This, however, only happened in the original Year of the Dragon. Red had assigned Nasty to stay behind in a place called Dragon Village, where the Nork and his forces would meet Spyro once more. Though, this wouldn't be enough to stop the young purple dragon from trying to end Red's campaign. With the news of Nasty's defeat, Red's anger bore its ugly head as he froze the Nork who delivered this information to him, and proceeded to shatter the messenger where he stood. Next, he would put another creature under his command in Spyro's way, a mermaid by the name of Neptune. Again, the forces of the Elder Dragon would fail in stopping the Purple Dragon, causing him to once more take his anger out on the unfortunate individual that brought him this news. Spyro and those who had joined him on his quest now made their way towards Red, the young dragon and the Elder now ready to battle each other. Eventually, the fallen dragon was defeated, but before he could fully be stopped, he flew into the skies, escaping what would have been the end of his fight against the Dragon Kingdom. Frustration and anger built within the dragon, as all he had done had simply been taken away by a seemingly small and insignificant dragon, no less. The opportunity to strike back presented itself, however, as Red found a friend of Spyro, someone who went by the name of the Professor, and took him hostage so that he could use the mole's scientific intellect to take revenge on Spyro and those who helped him. This would come in the form of an army of robots under the command of Red himself. With the news of the Professor's capture, Spyro went to go free him, but his presence was noticed by Red. Insults were thrown back and forth between the two, until Spyro charged into the Elder, shoving him into one of the machines Red had forced the Professor to make, turning him into a roboticized version of himself. With haste, the Professor tried to help Spyro by making Red smaller, so that the Purple Dragon could have an easier time dealing with his opponent. This would instead end up enlarging Red, leaving Spyro to fight the Metal Dragon. Red shifted between his normal form and his metal form as the Professor frantically tried to fix the machine, while Spyro was doing his best to beat Red once more, eventually doing so, and leaving Red lying on the floor, defeated. The mole during the fight had fixed the machine he was using to change Red's size, and quickly shrunk Red to only a portion of what Spyro's height was, later putting him in a jar so that he couldn't cause more chaos across the lands. The gems Red and his minions had placed over time were destroyed, his influence being erased from the realms, and leaving Spyro and his friends to rest easy. The taint of Red's actions, however, would soon show itself, in an event known as the Cataclysm, a wave of dark energy that sent all of the known lands and their inhabitants into the Shadow Realm, a place used by the creature known as the Sorcerer to imprison them in the shadowy reflections of their own homes. Spyro, who somehow was not affected by the Cataclysm, had just cleared Avalar and the Dragon Kingdom, and now traveled to the Dark Mirror of the Forgotten Realms. It was here that he found Bianca, a friend of his who had been taken captive by Red, who was somehow released from his glassy prison. With the new skills he had learned from the Dragon Elders, Spyro once more defeated Red, but learned that Red apparently was being controlled by the Sorcerer, being used ever since he had gone missing all the years prior to the Cataclysm. After this revelation, Red was sent back to the Dragon Kingdom, and with the truth revealed about what exactly happened to him, he was welcomed back into their society by most, the only exception to this being Titan, the friend who he seemingly betrayed all those years ago. He later found himself in the Dragon Dojo, mainly in response to a threat made towards Spyro by the Sorcerer, that he would return. Red then took it upon himself to train the next generation, so that the dragons and all of the lands could fight and hopefully defeat the Sorcerer once and for all. Now, I'm going to be honest. Red being introduced is a topic that I am somewhat cautiously approaching. The reason I say this is that, in my opinion, if a new continuity were to start, I would hope that we are introduced to a new world and new enemies to fight. And I fear that oversaturation with the old might leave a bitter after effect for the new. This doesn't mean, however, that I wouldn't welcome Red's return, as he did throw off the trope of non-dragons being the villains in the original timeline, and his presence could be used to do it once more. So for me, I don't think it would be a good idea to add him in the next game as a villain, but rather the game after that, or even the third in the new trilogy, if there is one. Red could start out as he was, an elder in the Dragon Realms, or if they decide to bring it back, the Council of Elders in the Dragon Kingdom. Perhaps unlike his original counterpart, his role could be more of the first twist villain in Spyro, first actually helping Spyro in whatever quest he might take on, but as time goes, his attitude seems to change, growing more aggressive towards Spyro and his comrades, until he snaps. Slowly he becomes the new villain in the game following. This is somewhat similar to his original counterpart, but does allow the player to see how he turned, rather than tell them how he turned. At the end of the story, it could reveal the sorcerer, just as it did before. Another idea that is not so close to the original, however, might involve him turning to the dark, but as the game progresses, he switches as he fights whatever's trying to control him. Maybe in a way, he could act as a plot point in the game, as Spyro tries to free Red from this darkness. Anyhow, that's it for me. If you have any ideas or theories, like I said at the beginning of the video, just make sure to leave them down in the comments below. I'll see you all in the next lore video. Stay safe, historians.